Hello, YouTube. I guess this will be the second episode of my experimental podcast, JD's Journey into Cinematic Geekery. And joining me on this episode, I've got two very special guests from a podcast that I listen to about the television show Cobra Kai. And so I've got Peter and Brihana with me. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, hey, happy to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Hello, thank you.
I finished my, I don't know, 6th or 7th rewatch through the series yesterday, and I not realizing that was one day before the Netflix trailers for season for the previous seasons were going to be online. I wanted to have a conversation about the show before the show moved from YouTube to Netflix. And I'm so happy that I could get you all to join me.
Yeah, again, happy to be here. Thanks for your support of our show and what we do. I really do appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm nodding my head, even though you can't hear me. I don't know why I'm nodding. I am.
You're in agreement, yes.
Yes.
So do explain a little, tell my audience a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, sure. My name is Peter. I started the show Cobra Kai Kompanion because originally when I wanted to cover the show, the idea was just to do one episode on a podcast at Cover Television where any host can go on and cover any show of their choosing. But after watching the first couple of episodes, I go, it's impossible to do one episode and talk about the entire show. So I had to break it down. I had to do individual episodes. At some point, I believe it was the off season of season 1, and that's where I met Brihana, kind of in between seasons there. And eventually she came onto the show and became the co-host.
Yeah, that's about it. I let's see, 18 months ago had never listened to a podcast and didn't really know what one was.
Wow.
And I went on Facebook because my friend Amy told me that I should go there because it was fun, and there's this really cool group to hang out on, and this guy just had a meltdown and you need to come watch.
So I think I know who that is.
Right. So I joined over there and went to a convention in Chicago, and Peter asked me to come on and talk about the convention in Chicago. And then he asked me to come on and talk about a trailer because his co-host at the time was avoiding spoilers. And then it was another trailer, and then it was another trailer. And then it was, hey, you have a segment on the show now. And then it was, hey, you're the co-host now.
Sounds about right. I concur.
Yes.
and we should mention that those trailers were for the second season of Cobra Kai, and they got progressively more spoilery. I remember watching the final trailer for season 2 and just thinking to myself, I wish I hadn't watched that because I felt like there were a bunch of spoilers in there. I mean, spoilers without context, but still, they showed a lot of footage of like the school fight from the final episode, and I'm just like, I wish they had just saved that for when we watch the television show. But
right.
I'm kind of hoping that once Netflix starts getting the season 3 trailers out, that they'll be a lot more guarded with the footage they actually show us, because I really don't like when movie trailers spoil or what feels like when you watch it a bunch of spoilers. I like some mystery. I like the trailers to be teases that don't give anything away, especially with this upcoming season, because this is going to be huge.
Right. And I think looking at the trailers Netflix is putting out for their other shows. Like I just watched the Lucifer trailer the other day, and I know a little bit about that show, but like there's nothing in the trailer that spoils me as someone who's never seen it, but it makes it look interesting. And I think they're really, really good at that. YouTube, I think, committed a bit too hard to the let's show them how awesome the fighting is thing. And that ended up with them giving away both of their punchlines from the finale, which was not just the school fight, but for me, the big one was Johnny and Daniel's fight. Because we get to we get to the end of episode 9 and they haven't fought yet and they're getting along. And you just know that that fight has to happen in the next episode. So it all has to fall apart.
You know, it's funny you mentioned at the end of episode 9 that they're getting along. I like that this show established a tradition for itself where the 9th episode of the season is the episode where Johnny and Daniel, they finally get together and they're finally talking and they're somehow even begrudgingly enjoying each other's company before something comes along in the 10th episode of the season and just fucks it all up. But I'm kind of hoping that season 3, even though we have no idea what the arc of season 3 is going to be, I would like to see that tradition continue. But if I'm being completely honest, I'd like to see less rivalry and more of them seeing eye to eye a little bit to team up to fight against the devil. I mean, you know, John Kreese. That guy is a serious problem, which we've known about since 1984, but the way he orchestrated his return in season 2 was beautiful. In that, when he gets together with Johnny and he explains brumation and and how you emerge when the time is right, and especially on this rewatch, I was like, I kept that line in mind, and I just thought to myself, he played it perfectly. He did exactly what he said he was going to do, and wow, he really messed up Johnny's world, didn't he?
Yeah.
All right, for anybody in my audience who's not watching Cobra Kai, if you're a fan of the Karate Kid franchise, I'm going to ask why the hell you aren't watching Cobra Kai. And don't say it's because you don't want to pay for YouTube, because, well, shut up and pay for YouTube. It gets rid of the commercials too. But
yeah,
pretty soon that's not really going to be an issue, because at the end of this month, it's moving from YouTube to Netflix. And I don't know anybody who doesn't have a Netflix account, and anybody who doesn't have a Netflix account, I'm curious why, honestly. But I am very excited for this move to the world's biggest streaming service. I don't know what the audience size for Cobra Kai was on YouTube, but I don't know the numbers, but just looking at the fan, the praise and all of the fanfare that show has brought in, with very little criticism along the way from both the regular viewers and the critics, you don't see that very often. And if anything, I think the move to Netflix is just going to get the show an even bigger audience, and I'm happy about that. I feel like this show deserves every bit of adoration that it's received.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, they sometimes look up movie reviews, television reviews. Season 1 of Cobra Kai was 100%, ripe on Rotten Tomatoes. That alone should have gotten, eyes on the show.
Yeah, because there was only 3 or 4 other shows that year that got that, and I think the composite score right now was 94, because it's 100 for season 1, and then it was 89, I think, for season 2. So it's still really good.
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that was one thing that the big three said they didn't know solid numbers as far as individual people. They only knew like the outward numbers that we could see. So at this point, the season 1 premiere has been watched, got to be close to 85 million times, if not more than that, because it was 80 million as of the end of was that May or June?
I don't remember the month, but the last time I heard the number, it was upwards of 80 million.
Yeah, but they didn't know how many of those were repeat viewers, how many of them were,
Plenty of our, other fans are watching them multiple times too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, it's entirely possible that Brie has accounted for 1,000 of those views.
Easily.
Maybe not quite that high.
Okay, maybe not quite. So 889, maybe. Every time I watch the show, I don't watch it as often as some fans do, simply because a lot of times there are shows that I want to watch, but I'll get off track and I'll start watching something else. Or sometimes I have to be able to sit down and actually pay attention to something. And a lot of times I end up putting something on that I don't really want to pay that much attention to. But when it comes to Cobra Kai, I will not let myself get distracted. So if I'm in exactly the right mood to just sit down and watch something and my phone's nowhere near me and I have no distractions around, that is when I'll start watching, and I'll get like 6 episodes in before I'm like, I think I need a cigarette now. That the big three have taken a franchise that many of us grew up on, and somehow they've made a near perfect television show as a follow-up. I don't know what kind of black magic they've gotten into to give them the creativity that has allowed them to make an almost perfect television show, but wow, they did it. And whatever that magic is, I'm glad they've done it.
I mean, it's just great writing, right? They have a great writer's room, a lot of brilliant ideas, and they themselves are fans. I think that has a lot to do with it too. The world had already been established. They just made it richer.
They most certainly did that. That's one of the things I really appreciate on the show is when they give us flashbacks to like insight into Johnny's life before we met him in The Karate Kid. I like the amount of depth they've given him. I'm a fan of the entire Karate Kid. Okay. Definitely the trilogy. And I give a lot of leeway on the next Karate Kid because there's a lot of cool ideas in there. It just wasn't handled particularly right.
It's the execution, right?
It's so much more generous than I am. So much more generous than me.
That's because I don't feel that it deserves to be ripped apart, but I also don't feel like that it deserves to be
dismissed.
Yeah. I think it's got its merits, but it's a short list. It's the only thing that I've... No, I was going to say it's the only thing I've ever watched Michael Ironsides in that I'm not a fan of.
I think it was a good attempt. I think it had good intentions. It, like Peter keeps saying every time he brings it up, it's the last time we see Mr. Miyagi alive. So it does have that going for it. It gave us Hilary Swank, which is huge.
Yeah, because I was going to say that was a year or two before she hit the big scene in Hollywood.
Boys Don't Cry, I believe, was 96. So that was
Boys Don't Cry would have filmed the year after.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was. I feel like the next Karate Kid for Hilary Swank, is like that. Is like those few movies, like the last few movies that Samuel L. Jackson did before Jurassic Park, where he really got noticed. And then a year later, Pulp Fiction comes out, and Samuel L. Jackson's career goes woo straight through the stratosphere. I feel like the next Karate Kid, if nothing else, it did that because even people that don't like the movie, you can't say it's not memorable because I think everybody I've ever mentioned it to, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Even if they didn't like it, they've seen it. But I think that has a lot to do with Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi is my favorite movie character of all time. Like, of any movie, in any genre, I don't care. Mr. Miyagi he's the guru that I look at. Like, every word that he says, when he shares that wisdom with Daniel-san, especially the, walk to the right, walk to the left, fine, walk in the center, squish. I'm just like, the guy's I'm like, yeah, he's a life guru. He really is. I love that character. And Bree, you're right. That is the most special thing about the next Karate Kid. It is the last time we see Mr. Miyagi alive.
Yeah.
And I like to believe that Pat Morita would approve or enjoy Cobra Kai if he was here, but damn it.
I think he would too.
Yeah, I do too.
I do remember when I read the news that he died. I was at work and I cried my eyes out right at my desk. I didn't even care. And somebody asked what was wrong, and I'm like, Mr. Miyagi died. And I was wrecked. The entire rest of the shift, I was wrecked. But hey, at least we had him for a while, right?
Yeah.
For anybody who's never watched Pat Morita's audition tapes on YouTube for that part, I recommend it. The way he played that role, the way he the writing was there on the page, but it was what he did with it that really sold the character. It's beautiful. And yeah, I feel like he's the one huge thing missing from Cobra Kai to keep it from being a perfect show, but that's nobody's fault. Stupid death. But
yeah,
I just, like every time they do a flashback to any of the scenes where he's in, I don't know, it's just like pure joy just to watch it. I like the way the show handles the flashbacks because they frame it around whatever's happening in the current timeline, and they handle it nicely. They don't rely on it. It's not a crutch. It's just there to give you a little bit of context.
Right. They managed to avoid becoming Ace Degenerate, even with all the footage that it has from the Karate Kid. It's not a clip show pilot by any means.
Thank
not
you.
even close.
Exactly.
It's all part of the story.
Exactly. Clip show. Yeah, I couldn't decide what the right word for it. Well, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's not relying on the old footage. It's just simply, it's for anybody who hasn't watched the movies on repeat, like many of us have. It does provide a lot of background on the off chance they're watching this and they barely remember those movies.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it provides a context for the younger generation, that went straight to watching Cobra Kai, like the new class, and even some of the actors. After interviewing some of them, they admitted they had never seen Karate Kid until after getting the role on Cobra Kai that they went back and watched those movies.
Well, yeah, because Owen just watched the Karate Kid Part 3, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, actually, I think all of them. I think he, including Part 2, because he came on to talk, give his thoughts on that on 2 and 3 on our Instagram account.
Yeah, and that was just a couple of weeks ago that Owen Morgan hadn't, and Mary Mouser on the IMDb boat said that her boyfriend was this enormous Karate Kid fan when she got the call back for the role of Sam, and he was trying to tell her about it, and she wouldn't let him because he was going to freak her out. But she'd never seen it either until after she got the part. So that to me, the whole concept of that is just bizarre. Anyone not having seen, my kids grew up watching these movies. So
my kids have seen them.
Big surprise, right?
Yeah. Ralph
true.
who?
I can't. I can't imagine being an adult that can say, well, I've never seen Karate Kid. I mean, as an adult, there's lots of movies I can say I've never seen that are classic movies that people love. But yeah, I just feel like not seeing the Karate Kid trilogy, I just feel like that's some kind of, I don't know, cardinal sin or something. It just seems wrong to me.
It's a quintessential 80s movie, you know, like your Breakfast Club, Back to the Future, Weird Science, you know, it's those movies. Yeah, the Karate Kid is definitely up there, and for those that maybe missed out on it, they at least have heard of the characters Mr. Miyagi and Daniel's son.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Miyagi and Daniel's names, I think, are part of the English lexicon now. Everyone knows, even if they've never seen the movie, everyone knows what a crane kick is, and they probably know how to at least pretend to do it.
Yeah.
It's just wax on, wax off. Even if they don't know where it came from, they know the expression.
No mercy.
Yeah, it's there. It's part of us.
There's no way you're using no mercy and not knowing the context from Karate Kid.
Yeah, very true.
And even before Cobra Kai, I would see things online that would say "strike hard first, strike hard, strike first," and I'm just like,
Strike
well,
first, strike
somebody's
hard.
a fan of the. Thank you.
I had to do that to Peter too.
I've been there. Jay, let me interrupt you real quick. What Brianna's referencing there, when we went to go visit the set, and I did this little thing where I reenacted the Nathaniel scene when he's inside Miyagi-Do and says "strike first, strike hard, no mercy." So I reenacted that, and I kept on messing up the lines that I had Hayden Schlossberg directing me.
He kept saying them backwards in front of Hayden.
Yeah, I was saying it all wrong. And my second attempt, I didn't even get to the third one. I stopped immediately, and I'm like, that didn't sound right. And so Hayden's there going, "With conviction, Peter." And so
I've seen that video of you on the on the Cobra Kai set, and seeing, especially like Mr. Miyagi's house, seeing it on the show is impressive, but actually seeing regular people in video footage on the set, and you see just how much detail they put into recreating and expanding on the set that we saw throughout the movies is impressive. I mean, at any point, did you go out on the pond and stand on that wood platform just to see if you could keep your balance? Because I totally would do that.
Well, we definitely stood there and discussed it with Hayden.
We discussed whether or not Peter was going to jump.
How deep is the water?
Right.
And we discussed it at length.
Didn't happen.
It didn't happen. I didn't have bathing suit, to change into. So that was probably the deciding factor, not having a change of clothes and
I can't swim, so it was never even a question for me.
Yeah. So no, that thought definitely crossed our minds, at least mine.
Well, I would have done it, and I would have gone in bare feet just to see if I could step on whatever disgusting thing had Sam LaRusso disturbed when they first stepped in there.
Yeah.
Every time I watch the show, there's different lines and stuff that take on like added significance for me, and that was one of those that I had never actually stopped to think about it. And then I just had to laugh because I'm just like, you got this really nice pond, but I can see Daniel skipping the step where he actually cleans the water. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, they just, kind of reopened it back up, just recently.
Right.
Right. So, at that point, it was just Sam and Robbie, right? They hadn't had the new recruits yet, too. So
nope, not yet. Yeah, Dimitri wasn't there yet because he hadn't gotten punched in the face by Kreese yet.
So you're probably right. It probably has not yet been cleaned since him just filling it up.
Right.
If it needed fill.
Right. If it even needed filled. The reason I've always thought that, it probably wasn't the cleanest thing in the world to be walking through is because when she asks him when it was cleaned, he went, "It's okay. It's all right. It's fine." Just keep going. He has no clue what they're walking through. None. And he also doesn't care. But, you know, that'll be their chore. He'll figure out a way to make that a lesson tomorrow.
I like to imagine when Dimitri asks if it's a koi pond, there's probably like the three-eyed fish, you know, from The Simpsons floating in or swimming in there.
Oh, yeah. The radioactive fish.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a question. Who, of all of the new characters that were added to the mythos with this show, who are your favorites? Like, not necessarily just your most favorite, but just your favorites. The ones that, when you watch the show, no matter what they're saying or doing, you just, I don't know, you just enjoy it.
Brihana, do you have any off the top of your head?
Amanda.
Oh, yes. I think she's my favorite TV mom ever. And that's saying a lot because there's been numerous ones that I've enjoyed over the years, like Jill Taylor on Home Improvement. For years, she felt like the perfect TV mom. But, man, Amanda LaRusso, she's not just the voice of reason for Daniel. She's the only thing that keeps the LaRusso family from just being a bunch of angry, overreactive people. Like,
well, they're Italian. I mean,
I understand because so am I.
Right.
And we always need these people that can ground us a little bit.
Peter and I were just talking the other day, actually trying to figure out whether, or no, it wasn't you. It was me and Sarah on Talking Fanfic, trying to decide whether or not Amanda is actually Italian.
We don't
because
know.
Courtney Hangler isn't. But the way Amanda gets into it with Lucille and the way they fight and the fact that that happens frequently enough that Sam and Daniel have a plan to deal with it kind of tells me that Amanda very well might be.
You think so? I mean, I feel like that's just an in-law thing.
Either that or she just picked it up from being around that family dynamic. It's like very in your face. And I had some friends here that were Sicilian, and they ran the restaurant, ran the pizza restaurant. And the youngest son's wife and his mother used to get in these screaming matches in Italian across the bar. And like everybody would just step all the way back when those two got into it, because you did not want to be between them. And that's what Amanda and Lucille reminded me of. Only in English instead of Sicilian.
Imagine the scene that we never saw that happened off screen when Daniel first brings Amanda home to meet his mother. I cannot imagine how Daniel could have thought, hey, this is a great idea. Let me let my girlfriend meet my super overprotective and ridiculously doting mother, and let's just hope she can get her approval. No. My grandparents, my dad's parents, they were Italian, and my grandmother was basically Lucille. She was overprotective. She saw no fault in her son or her grandchildren, and I'm just like, is she nuts? I'm like, even when we get in trouble, she was always just like, oh, they're perfect. Just leave them alone. And I'm just like, I'm watching Lucille LaRusso, and I'm just like, oh my God, it really is. She's exactly the same way. She sees no flaws with Sam, no flaws with, what's the son's name? Anthony.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Amanda is just wrong. She's just wrong. I did like that they made peace, though. However it was that Sam got them to agree on something. Daniel was certainly shocked. I get the feeling that was like 16 years of fights finally of them finally burying the hatchet. But
Either that
yeah.
or this is a blowout that happens once every year and then they get over it and then they're fine the whole rest of the time. My mother-in-law
Yeah, I could see
and
that
I
too.
used to fight like that. That it would just explode and then like 3 days later we're perfectly fine. So
yeah, I could see that too.
But Peter, you haven't answered yet. Your favorite character.
I mean, a lot of them. A lot of them. You know, JD, you mentioned Amanda. You guys both spoke about her, but Carmen comes to mind. Might be for the different reasons that I don't know. I feel like the moms are all the MVPs on the show. You know, we talk about how they're the voice of the audience and they're the only ones who sees through, you know, the two guys' bullshit. You know, so that's fun.
How
I just
ridiculous their respective man children are.
yeah, and they call it out too. Like, you know, these guys are acting like their characters from 1984, and here are these women who are 2020 audience. It's like, cut this shit out. Like, you guys are grown ass men still acting like teenagers. So I like all the moms. You know, Yaya, she's
she's
incredibly hilarious.
fantastic.
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite Yaya moments, and she's got so many. Like, I don't think there's. I love anytime Yaya is on the screen, but the one that sticks out is when she kind of breaks her accent and goes, "Too hot for teacher." You know, it's brilliant on Rose's acting there.
I like the following that up with don't knock her up.
Sure.
And then and Johnny says, "Thank you." What? Because he has no idea what she said. And I love that. I love that whole interaction.
That's a great joke. Like it reminds me of like you know, I often joke about how, you know, my vocabulary isn't very strong and I misuse terms and words and different spellings like eminent and imminent. You know, apparently I can't distinguish the two. But it's like when somebody says something and I don't understand what they mean, and I always take a beat and go, "Bless you." You know, so that's kind of my joke, you know, just like how Johnny says thank you.
My favorite bit with the grandmother on that show, after Miguel gets in the fight at the lunchroom and he tells Johnny about it, and Johnny's like, "Your mother must freak," and he said, "No, my you know," he basically said, "My grandmother answered the phone and they told her about the fight and she's never been prouder."
Mm-hmm.
She's a great character. One of the few hang-ups that I have with season 2, and it's understandable because of the narrative beats that they had to hit, was I just wish that she'd had a bigger part. She's just, yeah, she's funny. I would very much like to hear a conversation between Amanda and the grandmother. That would be excellent, especially if they're offering commentary on the man children. The scene in the Mexican restaurant where not only do the two couples run into each other, but then the women decide, hey, let's just push the tables together and have a double date.
Yep. And then without a word spoken between them, decide mutually to get up and go to the restroom and leave those two alone together.
That's absolutely brilliant. Like they totally stranded both of them, and I laugh hysterically because, well, you know, after they spent 10 minutes having a pissing contest to the point where Amanda even says, "Are you two finished comparing class sizes now?"
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot of great characters on this show. Who of the karate students, who are your favorites? Mine is definitely Miguel. Absolutely, far and away Miguel. He's a great character.
Brianna, you want to go first again?
No, because I got to think.
Okay. You know, I think Miguel's a safe one for me, just because I do find his character very relatable in many ways. You know, he's a son of immigrants, and yeah, I wasn't bullied, but a part of me, like, I felt I wasn't an outcast or anything like that. I knew a lot of people, so I didn't really have my own clique. I can always find a group and just kind of tag along with. Like I can always blend in with different cliques. I didn't have my own group. Most of my close friends were actually they attended other schools, so I kind of did my own thing during high school. So I can kind of relate to Miguel, whereas in that sense, where he was the new kid, but more of an outcast because he was a new kid. Um, for me, like I didn't have like a big crowd of friends that I always hung out with, So like during lunch, either if I'm not doing my own thing, I'm kind of finding a group to just kind of, hang out with for the time. Of season 2, I really like Nathaniel. And Jenny, you mentioned that we didn't get a lot of Yaya in season 2. We didn't get a lot of our smaller characters that were instant fan favorites from season 1. Lynn, Bert, all of those people. Like Lynn had like one scene. Bert had. Did he have any lines? I'm trying to even think.
Yeah, Bert had lines.
That's right. Yeah, usually with Nathaniel, but at the party and such. Um, but anyway, like Nathaniel, for me, I often talk about like how in the 80s there weren't a lot of Asian characters, for me to look up to. A lot of people, they see themselves on screen. I mentioned Breakfast Club, very popular amongst the teens back in the 80s because kids were able to relate with every single one of them. I couldn't. I had Data from Goonies, who was also Short Round in Indiana Jones, and Rufio from Hook. Ernie Reyes Jr. in all types of movies, including Surf Ninjas and stuff like that. Nathaniel's going to be that next kid for my kids. My 8-year-old son wears glasses like Nathaniel. He can easily watch this and maybe just like the character of Nathaniel because he kind of looks like him. So I like that character.
Aisha. And the more you talk, the more I realize just how much. I mean, I love Miguel, absolutely adore him, love Robbie, feel for him. He's so broken family, get where he comes from, understand Sam. My heart breaks for Eli, and I just adore Dimitri.
Me
But
too.
Aisha is a heavy-set, awkward nerd girl who's not a fucking punchline.
No.
And she's the first one like that. And or the only one that I can think of. That's just who she is, and that's just how it is. And Nicole is freaking gorgeous, first of all. And I love that Aisha just owns what a badass she is, and if I could have gotten into karate when I was a teenager, I would like to imagine that I would have been brave enough to be like her and to just become the badass no matter what. So yeah, Aisha.
She's a great character because the one person who talks down to her on that show is the one person that she gives the ultimate comeuppance to.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that scene because I was a lot like Peter in high school. I did not have a clique of my own. I talked to people from all the cliques. And the people that annoyed me or picked at me, I usually just blew them off. I was definitely never bullied, but I can say, yeah, there were lots of people that picked on me, but I just moved past it. Like, I just let it, no skin off my teeth. I'm just, whatever. But I can identify with Miguel, too, because my dad was in the Army. We moved all the time. Every year or every 2 years, I was the new kid in school.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take a few weeks, and then I'd pick up with a group of friends, and then I'd move on, and that kind of sucked, but I understood it. I do wish that I'd had, when I was when I was a kid, when I was about 6, I was briefly in karate. I'm pretty sure it was the Karate Kid's fault. But yeah, I wasn't in for all that long because I've always had a problem where if I'm not getting the hang of something immediately or as fast as I think I should, I had a bad habit of walking away from it. And I don't remember, but I can imagine that's probably what happened. And I wish that this me could go back and tell me back then, I don't know, just stick with something. Pick something and stick with it for more than a few tries. But I'm pretty sure little kid me would also be terrified of now me. So maybe it's good we don't have time travel.
Right.
But
I think during time like this, we wish we did. At least fast forward.
Right. Or if we could just rewind about 6 months and maybe just a little bit of a redo would be okay. Yeah, because it's like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day on the phone, and I said, remember 8 months ago back in June when you said we should get together after the pandemic? I'm just like, yeah, he's like, was that only 8 months ago? I'm like, I know, feels like 3 years. 2020, somebody said, oh, we're only 5 months from Christmas. I'm like, do you know how long these 5 months could be?
Right.
Could very well feel like 5 years.
I was talking to a friend of mine on Twitter yesterday, and we were joking about, forgetting losing track of what day it is and stuff like that. And he goes, it's the 166th of March. And I went back and counted, and yeah, he was absolutely right, because he'd gone back and counted too. Yesterday was the 166th of March. It's okay.
Anytime I can't remember which day of the week it is, I comfort myself knowing that all of the days still end with Y, so it's got to be one of them.
Yes.
Okay, I had to think about that. I was like, do they?
Yes, they do.
Well, for now, until 2020 wreaks havoc on that too.
Oh, God.
Well, I guess I'm gonna stick myself with the months, because the months definitely don't.
No.
Well, some of the months, you know how some months have 30 days, some months have 31 days, and then there's that
or 28. That
1 month that has 28
or 29, depending on what mood it's in.
Yeah.
But I feel like this year, some months have 137 days, and some months have 284 days. But at the same time, when I think that we've all been home basically since this pandemic started and everything kind of started shutting down back in March, and I think to myself, wow, it's been a long year. And then I'm like, but still, how the hell is it almost the middle of August? I mean, it's like it's the middle of August.
See,
right, where'd summer go?
Where's the time gone? This is weird.
Okay. I think I figured it out. I think what happened was each month extended, but our days got cut in half. Like, it's 12 hours a day now. We're going by it's going by so quick because everyone is so, busy kind of doing what they're doing.
Do you have any idea how much sense that makes? And do you have any idea how crazy it is that makes sense?
See?
Yeah. I'm sitting here. Wow, my mind is completely blown. That really does make perfect sense.
Right?
All of our days, they're 12 hours long, and that's why it feels like it's going by so quickly and dragging at the same time.
Yeah,
Thank you,
working from
calendar.
home. Working from home does that too, because those of us that are able to work I always have, so to me it wasn't that big of a change, but it takes a particular mindset because you literally never go home from work when you work from home. You're always available, you're always just that close to your office, and it's a really, really hard mindset to get into if you're not used to it.
Yeah, I've been working from home since March. And, working from home has proven two things for me. First of all, it turns out I actually did not need any of my coworkers, so I don't miss them because I still do my job exactly the way I always did it. I just
Right.
don't have their chatter. I just don't have their chatter in my vicinity anymore. And it's also proven that no matter how long this lasts, I still feel like I'm constantly experiencing going insane and feeling calm at the same time in the same moment every day. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is really weird. And then today they told us that now we're working from home because, like everything, they've been pushing the time frame back and back for everything. Things reopening and movie releases and um, and even all the shows and production and everything that was in production, everything, they keep saying, oh no, it's got to get moved back. And today they told us, or a couple months ago they told us probably the end of the summer. Today they told us not before November 1st are we going back. And I'm just like, at some point they're just going to say, hey, stay home till spring. And by that point, well, if we don't already have cabin fever, we will. But hey, we've got Cobra Kai to keep us company. So,
Right.
As much as I can say I have not rewatched the show as often as I feel like I should, we're coming up on a point where it's going to end up joining the short list of shows that I do watch a lot more often because in this strange time that we're all living in, it's definitely comfort food. And I've started trying out different shows just so I can just watch the familiar things, because in a time of a lot of anxiety, I don't like the uncertainty of not knowing where my shows are going. So yeah, but then at the same time, then we've got the big unknown of Cobra Kai season 3, and I'm just like, wow, how much crazier is this going to get? I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
So if you had criticisms of the show, I mean, obviously nothing's a deal breaker or anything, but are there any little things that you get hung up on that you wish you could just let go, but it just bugs you?
For me, I guess it's a light criticism. There's really no breakers on the show for me.
None for me either, but
Cobra Kai is one of the very few shows. I can probably name 2 others off the top of my head that I will rewatch. There's other shows that I love that I can only watch one time. Whether it's like the subject matters like on the show. For example, like Orange is the New Black. I love that show, but I can't go and rewatch the show over and over because some of those episodes are just very heavy and heartbreaking, and Cobra Kai is no different. But but there's a balance of the comedy and my love of the franchise and the history, the spirit of Miyagi lingering, all of that. It works for me. Breaking Bad's the other one. And also Quantum Leap. Those are all shows that I can rewatch over and over at any given time. For me, the only time that I raised an eyebrow was my first watch of season 2. We just talked about how season 1 was 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and season 2 was like high 80s. For me, I didn't expect a tonal shift. And season 1 was full of nostalgia, introducing brand new characters. And season 2, there was a focus on Daniel and Johnny, but they were also expanding that world. And tonally, it was so different for me that, JD, you mentioned how they have a formula by episode 9. This is what we're expecting. I just thought that it was going to be almost a repeat of the first season. All the nostalgia, but it was a bunch of new stuff, right? The most nostalgic that we got was episode 6, right, with the OG Cobra reunion, right?
Oh yeah.
So aside from that, it was all new stuff, and I just wasn't expecting that, and so it actually took me a little bit longer to process because I was expecting like another fun ride and bumping into Freddy, you know, like all these familiar faces again, but we didn't get that. So that's no knock, and I commend them for like, okay, well, this is a show called Cobra Kai, you know, the Karate Kid saga, you know, is not, it is a continuation, but this is a world with different characters that they wrote and built themselves. So that was it. But and I think after understanding that, I was like, okay, well, it's different but same. I accepted it a little bit more, and so I love season 2 just as much now. So, but at first I was just like, man, this is just so different, though, you know. So that's just kind of how I was feeling after my initial watch.
I think if you go and look on Rotten Tomatoes, probably a lot of the viewer criticism that brought it down out of the 90s is that exact same thing. Where's my nostalgia? And for me, I don't know that I was necessarily expecting that shift, but I wanted it. After season 1, you know, kind of lays the groundwork and establishes that we're still in the same universe. Season 2 is supposed to start expanding out and widening the base. So from season 3 on, you can start building up the big epically scaled drama, which we know we are standing right on the precipice of. Season 1, pretty arguably a comedy. Season 2, both. Season 3, I expect to be a drama with a little bit humor here and there. I don't think it could be argued that Johnny and Daniel are healthy enough to maintain season 1 mentally.
Nope.
Because that was both of them faking it, and eventually, you know, the walls have to come down. As far as things that we just cannot let go, I have 3. They are very tiny. They are very picky. I have tried very, very hard to let them go, and I can't. I cannot let them slide. I'll start with the least importance up to the highest importance to me, right? First, Sam's birthday is chronologically impossible unless she was 14 years old during season 1, when season 1 started, because she would not turn 16 until October of 2018, which is after season 2. So she would have been 14 when season 1 started, going by the birthday that we see in Daniel's scrapbook. Number 2 is Johnny beating Tommy in the finals in the All Valley in 1983. He didn't. He beat Bobby. The big one?
Oh, I never noticed. I never would have picked up on that. I never, ever would have picked up on that.
Peter knows my big one because I gripe about it all the time. Daniel would know there is no such thing as a 5.8 liter Hemi engine. And it bugs me, and it still bugs me. And I've asked them about it, and Hurwitz even said that it was kind of an oversight in the writing, but they wanted it to bookend with the REO Speedwagon and all of this stuff. But it makes Daniel look like he's either lying or incompetent, and I don't like that because he's neither.
Only to you, though.
Only to anyone who knows there's no such thing as a 5.8 liter Hemi engine.
I know what an engine is. I don't know what Hemi means, and you just said some numbers, and they meant nothing to me.
I mean, I think that's an abbreviation for hemisphere.
Oh, okay, sure. Yep.
You know what? That works for me. Hey, cool. I want a round circular engine. Yes,
I do cars.
What I have on my wish list.
I do cars for a living. I'm an insurance adjuster, right? And they actually had Robbie, like, the stupidest happy I was, probably like the happy for the dumbest reason watching season 1 was when he's lying when he says it, but Robbie tells Amanda that he's taking the photos to send to the adjuster so she doesn't have to come all the way out from Torrance to inspect the car. That's what I do. No one ever knows what I do, right? Like, everybody knows the word insurance adjuster, but no one knows what one actually does. But Robbie knows, which means the writers know, which means they knew what I did before they knew me. And that just made me so happy. It's such a tiny little thing. And for them to get that tiny little detail right meant the world to me.
Is that kind of like when I switched my insurance to Geico, and the first thing I had to do was go over and get the car looked at and photographed or whatever, so they could activate my insurance? Is that what the adjuster did, or?
I only get involved if there's been damage to the car. So a wreck or a theft or a hailstorm. Like right now we're dealing with the Derico that just moved through Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. But I'm only involved for damage.
Oh, so like if a biker guy sets a guy's car on fire.
I definitely would have shown up at Johnny's apartment the next morning with my phone to take pictures. Yes.
Nice. I love that Johnny just shows up on Daniel's doorstep. Daniel drops the coffee cup, and he's like, "What are you doing? You come to my house?" And he's like, "What did Johnny say about his goon squad or whatever?" And we find out, and then Daniel finds out that it was Louis who decided to act on his own. And at least I feel like he did the rational thing by saying, Louis not allowed on this property anymore, ever. I'm like, okay, well, that was the right call.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I don't want to see Louis come back eventually, just so we can find out what he got stuck doing after his cousin, who didn't really want to hire him in the first place, had to fire him for being a jackass.
Yeah, not just fire him, but I mean potentially have him arrested for arson.
I feel like the one thing that would stop Daniel from doing that is because he would have had to hear it from his mother. And again, I'm Italian, and I can't tell you how many things that I've just decided I'm just going to do or not do just so I don't have to hear it from my parents. I just don't need it. I can hear the lecture already. I know how to avoid it. But I really did. Well, funny thing with Louis, I totally took it as, he's just Daniel's cousin or whatever. Until Bree, you pointed out on the Cobra Kai Kompanion podcast that he's got to be, that somebody, either Louis had him really late in life or there's another continuity error, because I never would have picked up on it. And I'm just like, okay, well, now that bugs me. Now that's one of my hang-ups that I'm just like, I mean, I know people sometimes have kids way late in life, but I don't know. Yeah, because he looked pretty damn old when we saw him in Karate Kid 3.
Yeah, and Lucille said he's 70. So
yeah,
he was already born.
I mean, maybe I was to say it's possible that at 85 but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, he could be Louis LaRusso the third, though. Could be his grandson.
I think he's credited as Junior.
It says Junior on IMDb. Yeah, it does.
I mean, he could also be like the baby of 9. It's just one of those families.
That is true.
Jack Lemmon, Jack Lemmon's youngest was born when he was, 73, 74?
You'd know better than me.
Something like that. Jack Lemmon was ridiculously old when his youngest was born.
What about Marlon Brando? Doesn't he have a lot of kids too?
Well, and how many rock stars that started their careers in the 50s are still having children now? I mean, I swear to God, people like the Rolling Stones, can you imagine how many children those guys have?
Oh, God.
Maybe they don't know about all of them. Can you imagine how messed up Keith Richards' kids must be? But that's just an aside.
They're going to live forever, though. So, you take the trade-off, right? You get the immortality. You take the trade-off.
I feel like no matter how much crazier 2020 gets, at least we know that New Year's 2021, Keith Richards will still be out there, and he's only halfway through his lifespan.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, it's like,
either,
to bring it back to Cobra Kai, we talk about, Billy and Ralph and how fantastic they look, and no one believes that Ralph is going to be 59 in 4 months. We joke about what the magical powers and vampires and haunted paintings in the attic and things like that. Keith Richards has all of that just without the haunted painting, so he's not still ridiculously pretty, right? The other two have the painting, so they're still ridiculously pretty.
Well, I have to say, when you stop and you realize that Ralph Macchio is now, he's in the same age range that Pat Morita was when he played Mr. Miyagi. I'm just like, and you'd never, well, yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean. You look at people 30 years ago that were in their 50s, and you look at a lot of people in their 50s now, and it's just like, interesting. Right. I mean, my parents now are the same age my grandparents were when I was a little kid, and they're both definitely both look like they're in better health. It's odd.
I remember being in high school, and one of my teachers was also a student at that high school, and he had a picture of him from like senior year that he showed us, and I think it was a class photo actually, and like everybody looks 30. They were all seniors. Things have changed. Kids nowadays look like Bert. They're all little.
I think too, it's a matter of perspective, because as we get older, like our eyes age with the rest of us. Oh, he left. Bye, JD. We're still recording. So I assume he's coming back.
Yeah. Sounds like the kid got in the way or got in.
Oh, yeah. I almost had a catastrophe when D word over here got let in because Andy went to bed. And I was like, oh no, he's going to cry. But no, he just crawled up in his chair and now he's snoring. So he's behaving himself very well.
Sorry.
You're fine. We stopped.
If,
Excuse me.
All right, I'm going to ask the controversial question.
Oh.
Okay, now everybody watching this show, you know what? I should specify my season 2. I only like it slightly less because of the tonal shift, but it's because it's less about the tonal shift and more because, see, like Bree, I wanted the second season to feel different. I wanted it to expand outward and not capitalize with so much on the nostalgia. Instead, watching season 2 makes me feel nostalgia for season 1 and the number of characters that barely had screen time, like Miguel's grandmother and homeless Lynn. So there is nostalgia missing from season 2, but for me, it's the stuff from season 1. Because as much as I love both seasons, I feel like season 1 is just about a perfect season of television.
Mm-hmm.
And episode 9, different but same, I think that's my favorite half hour of television ever. Even when I'm not rewatching the whole season, I've probably seen that episode like 15 times. Sometimes if I just want to watch something to amuse myself and comfort myself, when I'm feeling like really crappy, if I put that episode on, I go through the whole range of emotions, and I always feel better at the end of it.
Right.
But so everybody likes the nostalgia. Everybody has a wish list of things that they would like to see in the coming season or the coming seasons, because I'm kind of hoping they have at least 5 more seasons in them. hey, wishful thinking, but
Right.
I enjoy it. But so, of the things, like what are like what name two things that you would like. Name two characters that you want to see come back, and then name a character that you don't care if they ever come back, or you feel like they just aren't needed.
Okay, I've got mine prepared. Peter, you want to take yours, or you want me to?
No, you go ahead, please.
Definitely want to come back. Chosen Taguchi, Mike Barnes. Do not care if I ever see them again. Allie Mills.
Yep. Yep.
I would have to say exactly the same three. Yeah, that she just said.
I have to see Chosen again. When I was growing up, I saw the first movie, and I never felt like Johnny was the villain there. But Chosen, when I saw Karate Kid 2 for the first time on video, I didn't get to see it in the movie theater. My mother was afraid because they watched the commercials, and even in the commercials they could see it was a little darker and a little crazier than the first one. She was afraid that it might be too violent for me. And well, wow, if you watch that final battle, she may have been right, because I was 6 or 7 when the second movie came out. So I do remember having the movie storybook that I bought at the book fair at school. So for a long time, that was the only way I knew the story of the Karate Kid 2. And it might be one of the reasons why, as much as I love the first movie, number 2 is my favorite. But that might also have something to do with there's a lot more Mr. Miyagi stuff in there.
Right.
But the wish list, I have to see Terry Silver again. God, I love that character. He's such an over-the-top, mustache-twirling bad guy. Oh, I love that character so much.
He actually says "blah ha ha." I mean, who really says that?
I know somebody that I work with, but that's.
And when he says it, I take it seriously. I'm just like, of course, this guy would say that. I mean, he's on the phone talking to his Dynatox employee saying, "Oh, just dump it wherever. Who cares? We'll pay for the litigation." I'm just like, that is the most late 80s, early 90s bad guy shit ever. I mean, we were headed into the era of Captain Planet. So Terry Silver is like a real life version of a cartoon villain, and I love it. But I like him too because of it was the retcon. He comes in and you find out that Cobra Kai wasn't just Kreese, but he had help with it. And I'm a sucker for retcons, things like that. So Terry Silver, I want to see him on Cobra Kai eventually. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it will. But yeah, it's got to be him and Chosen. As much as I like Mike Barnes and I would like to see him come back, I don't. I feel like I can't help but feel like he's like Dutch. I feel like the guy's in jail somewhere. So if we don't see him, it's because he's in jail. Because Karate's bad boy, yeah, that's an understatement. I think that guy was psychotic. So if he's not in jail, well, the character probably was at some point. So now he's under house arrest. So that'd be a good way to explain him not coming back. But yeah, I got to see Terry Silver and Chosen. And I think we've got a good case for Chosen. Wishful thinking, dare to dream. But if Daniel's going back to Okinawa in season 3, I think we've got a pretty good case for Chosen, at least showing up for a cameo, maybe. But yeah, I gotta say Allie Mills too. Look, I like Elizabeth Shue. I love Elizabeth Shue. Who doesn't?
Right.
we don't need to see that character again.
Nope.
If that character came back, it would be for all the wrong dramatic reasons. I don't. She's not necessary. I mean, not to the story they've established. I mean, I think it's cool that they talk about her, and I thought it was both sad and funny and horrifying that she sent a friend's request to Johnny after he threw his phone at the end of the second season. But that's really like if she came back and she had a cameo on the Skype call or something, that'd be okay. I just don't need to see the character come back and play a role on the show. I feel like most of the people who are wishing for that, I feel like it's purely a nostalgia driven thing. And I like nostalgia, but I don't want them to rely on it. And I don't feel like bringing her back will add anything. I feel like it'll take it away. I feel like her presence, even for an episode or two, I feel like it'll take away from the new characters or the spirit that they've established on the show between the new characters and the returning characters. Yeah, I feel like it'd just be like throwing a wrench into the machine. Yeah.
I mean, and not that it's the same thing, but it's kind of the same with like Kreese. You bring Kreese in and give him this backstory and this side plot. You kind of take away from moments from the characters that we love from season one. I kind of mentioned it. JD, I think I'm on the same page with you in terms of Chosen. Like, I want it back because we know about Daniel going to Okinawa. If we didn't know that bit of detail, I don't think we'd be sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, hopefully we see Chosen." It just makes sense.
I agree. If they had decided, because how did we first find out about Okinawa? Did Ralph Macchio mention it?
Ralph told us at San Diego last year.
Okay, so if he had not said anything, I would not have been expecting Okinawa. Right. And so, I mean, all through after the first season, I remember saying to somebody, boy, I'd really like to see Chosen on the show. And people are like, somebody asked me, well, how the hell would that happen? I'm like, well, Daniel has a dealership. I don't know, maybe Chosen back in Okinawa, maybe some kind of investment banker or something. And maybe he travels maybe he travels to, wow, I'm having a brain fart on Reseda. Oh. Maybe, I don't know, maybe LaRusso Auto has a bunch of, there's a dealership chain here that started here, but they actually have a bunch of locations across the U.S. now. And I actually heard that they have like 2 international divisions. And I thought, well, maybe Chosen, like maybe if LaRusso Auto ever wanted to find an international market, they could bring Chosen in, and he would come under the guise of wanting to invest, but then he'd come back just to make Daniel's life miserable and for an episode, and then go back to Okinawa and say, you still have no honor, LaRusso. Never mind that he doesn't understand what that word means.
Or he didn't when he was 18.
Well, that's true. That's true. At the time, he's always like, oh, you've challenged my honor. You've wrecked my honor. Dude, you're cheating all the people that you live in the village with out of money. But
the reason I want Chosen back, this is going to sound ridiculous, so I'm just going to put it out there, because if I don't, Watch Party will pick up on it and he'll say, oh my God, she was inconsistent. Hi, Chris, I love you. Anyway, the reason that I want Chosen back is part of the reason why I think Allie's not coming. And that's just the pure obviousness of it. But it's completely different. Like in the show, they've done all this setup, right? And they've done all this backstory to where Allie is the pediatric surgeon and her husband is the oncologist, and she's, you know, this, that, and the other. And Johnny has all these issues with her, and he needs closure, and he's keep thinking of her, and he keeps talking about her, and the accidental friend request, and then the Facebook, you know, friend request at the end. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, it's obvious she's coming back. And to me, I'm like, well, when have they ever given us anything that they spent this much time setting up? They don't. They do that, and then they yank it out from under us, like Daniel and the ice blocks, you know?
Well, okay, it's like Peter said. Would we be expecting, or really, even though, despite my stupid fanboy wish after season 1 of finding some excuse to bring Chosen on, I never actually expected it. And if we didn't know about Okinawa, we wouldn't be expecting Chosen. I feel like if they hadn't talked in depth about Allie in that episode, and we had not found out that she was a pediatric surgeon, and had a certain character in season 2 not sustained a catastrophic injury, and he happens to be one of the teenagers, I feel like a lot of people are reading into it that that's why she must come back to help Miguel, and I feel like that's a false flag. Like, if we didn't know she was a doctor of any kind, I feel like nobody would be expecting her the same way we wouldn't be expecting Chosen if we didn't know about Okinawa. And I feel like there's a lot of false hope there from people, but yeah, I feel like okay, hang on. Hang on. I just saw the message. Hang on. Internet. Hang on. Is that better at all?
Yeah,
it's kind of rattling
a little bit
when you talk.
All right, hang on.
Right now it's okay, but when you first just spoke.
All right, hang on one sec.
And now you're frozen. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
I know you're still there.
There he is.
Okay.
All right. Is that better?
No, the crackling got worse.
Yeah, it's like rattling. It sounds like change rattling every time you talk.
All right, hang on.
You leaned forward and did something to your phone, and it started when you sat back.
Yeah.
Better?
Worse.
No.
Way worse.
All right, hang on.
Is your cables, are they tangled or knotted?
No. Hang on. Can I pause this and resume it? Hang on. All right, hang on. Sorry, I meant to